But we're on. Okay. Good evening. I call this meeting to order. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Levenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Township Manager Julia Heilica, Administrative Coordinator Diana Salvi, Conservation and Recreation Director Alex Jackson, Solicitor Ron Karasak, and Engineer John Tressler. In terms of announcements, we're directing folks to submit letters of interest for the Environmental Advisory Committee. Conservation and Recreation Director Alex Jackson, he can take that by email. So he will be around.
What's his email?
His email is alex@smithfieldtownship.com. Next, there was an executive session this evening regarding personnel litigation from 5:32 p.m. to 5:54 p.m. Okay, next, we have the minutes of the January 24th, 2024 regular meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by Mr. Albert. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bills and obligations, we're considering ratification of bills paid on February 7th in general fund in the amount of $60,690.69. That has to be done. And then we have current bills, which are a total of, well, there's general fund $96,482.09, nothing for liquid fuels or escrow, but we have $251,885.56 in the capital improvement grant fund, which is budgeted improvements for the crew, which include the skid steer and the loader that we approved in the budget. Okay, do I hear a motion on the bills?
Motion to approve the bill.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Levenheim, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Albert, any questions?
Which one was the loader? Is it in here? In this list?
Yes, that is
It's
under
at the very end of the list.
correct.
No, it's
Capital
Teamsters.
No,
Oh, there,
the-
5-star.
The five stars, the skid steer drop is lower.
And that is in keeping with what was budgeted?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, reports, solicitors report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Other than the usual activity that I may deal with in the course of a day, the major item for January was my attendance and presentation of the township case in the Mountain Manor motocross enforcement notice matter. The case did not complete on, I believe it was last Monday, so it was scheduled to continue on February 22nd at 7 p.m. Not sure if it will continue then, but I think it may well continue then. It will be done then. And then the board will have 45 days to, well, the board will then render a decision, and then I will have 45 days to write an opinion with respect to what's the board's decision. So at the time we left the case, there were objectors who still wanted to present cases through their lawyers. So that's where we're going to be picking up, would be the objector's presentation with respect to the case. And there was some additional work done with respect to Shawnee, PRD, and some of the related matters, but that's pretty much was a highlight for January.
PRD, you mean the HOA one?
No, the PRD, the actual amended amended 2005 PRD plan. I had some work done with respect to that,
Okay,
with respect to some emails that have come in and things.
okay,
And on the Shawnee situation with respect to, the roads, et cetera, I have asked for, a title search to make sure that the information I have is accurate. Robert believes it is. I want to double check just to be safe. And then I'm prepared to proceed with that,
okay.
in whatever fashion the board wishes.
Right? Engineer.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Like Ron, I had some of the run-of-the-mill stuff that we were doing the past month. But the one thing I want to bring to the board's attention is 2 weeks ago, we did provide the plans for Green Mountain Drive, where we need to acquire right-of-way for repairs to the bridge, both temporary and permanent easements around the bridge. I'm not sure how the board wants to proceed, but I do know that we're gonna have to get the right of way. From all my research,
Right.
there's portions of the bridge which are outside of the existing 33-foot wide right of way. And so we will need that. I think in order for the board to make any kind of offers, the law requires that they get an appraisal. So that would be the next step I think the board should consider, is contacting an appraiser. They should be able to work off of the information I submitted and go from there. And that's all that I have.
So I think we should formally consider that at our next meeting, or is that something that needs to be acted upon right now?
We already had an appraisal of the alternate route there. Maybe if we find the same appraiser, you still have a lot of the same material.
No, that's a good idea. I don't know that it's pressing that you'd have to take action tonight,
Okay.
Jacob, but I would
Let's
put it
solicit
on the
the
agenda
appraisal.
for next.
All right, well, let's solicit the
When,
appraisal.
when is it supposed to get repaired?
Well, it's gonna be somewhat up to us. We do have the grant funding. We've got to get the design done. It's got to go through the approval process.
And when's the grant funding expire? You know?
I don't know.
think
We've
it's
got
gonna
plenty
be-
of time.
Okay.
It's generally like
It's
3
either
years or
2025 or
Yeah.
2026. Sorry.
But I would
22.
I would like to conclude the design and be ready to go out to bid towards the end of summer at the latest. And then you've got either the fall or the following spring and early 2025 to get it completed.
Right. All right, so we'll do that at our next meeting then. Perfect. Anything else?
That's all that I have.
Awesome. All right, so under old business, we have the continuation of the public comment period for the renaming of Sandville Creek. Alex, I don't know if you wanted to discuss that before we take in some. I know we've got some input via email from folks, but certainly some people can come in.
Yeah, we definitely got some email input from folks, before it goes to the board of supervisors. Alex Jackson, Director of Conservation and Recreation, by the way. There's been some discussion about renaming the creek since the last board meeting. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things with the board. Geographically, Sandville Creek does start in Middle Smithfield Township, and the board should note that upon further investigation, the land up there is actually owned by East Stroudsburg Borough. On the question of the origin of the name Sambo, based on 2 reviews of the literature, one by Chris Brooks, another one by Danny Younger, only theories and anecdotes exist. No concrete local historical names for that water body exist, as nearly as I could tell based on what I read. There's also been some discussion among the stakeholders of the municipalities and other stakeholders. They're all in agreement on the need to rename the creek, but right now there's not a clear consensus on what exactly to rename the main stem of Sambo. The board consensus was for Brushy Mountain Creek at the last meeting. Now new potential names were submitted from some discussion. One of them is Three Sisters Creek, Dansbury Creek, Van Vleck Creek, Lenape Creek, or Wolf Creek. Does the board have any questions on this report?
No, I think you did a good job compiling what a million people have said so far. Open the floor to anybody else that had any comment?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to say is, some of these names like Brushy Mountain Creek don't take in the fact that there are actually two creeks, at least we know, right? There's the Little Sambo and there's the Big Sambo. And the Little Sambo does not come from Brushy Mountain. So if it's something like Danbury, where it actually goes, maybe that's more of a geographically good
Wasn't that
description.
the part that we talked about that folks in Lake Valhalla wanted to name after the swan?
It was.
Swan Creek, yeah, that was
Yeah.
another one.
Swan. Anybody want to talk about that?
Hi, I'm Brett Cartwright. I was curious, does this creek gonna have more than one name as it travels down the mountain? Just we're gonna have one name for the whole thing, okay. I was curious about that.
Or will there be a little and a normal again, or might there be two names for those?
So, just to clarify, there's the main stem of the Sambo, and then there's the tributary, which is commonly known as the Little Sambo. Those are two different name petitions. I hope that clarifies things. So the main stem of the Sambo is what we were kind of talking about in terms of what potential names. The unnamed tributary or Little Sambo, I believe the consensus was Swan Creek.
Just to give folks some background, do you want to talk about briefly the previous that wasn't included on this? For the record again, I know you did this last.
So I can tell you what I know. Yeah, 2015, 2016, there was an effort among stakeholders and municipalities to rename the creek. I believe a board member of the Broadhead Watershed Association formally submitted a proposal to the USGS. There was not follow through from the local municipalities on an actual name to select. So we're sort of revisiting that process now, as I understand it.
So does that mean, in other words, the two townships in borough will have to all agree on the same name in order to make the change happen?
That would be ideal.
There's a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Becky Ellis and I live in Lake Valhalla. Why are we changing the creek thing? That, come on.
Well, Sambo is really a pejorative term, as most people understand it.
Okay, but it's named after the native Indian.
That is conjecture. There's, riddles and theories and thoughts, but no one's ever been able to prove who that was.
Do we know who gave the name originally?
Originally, well, the current racist name, is a derivative of what was the N-word run, as he let us know.
I don't know that.
Well, it was on maps, if you look at maps from the past. Correct. So if we can, we'd rather have it reflect, local heritage as opposed to some, pejorative term. And East Stroudsburg and Middle Smithfield were on board with it last time, it's just nothing went through, but there's been a recent push with the USGS for locals to rename things of that nature.
Do we act like the native Indians?
We have reached out to the Lenni Lenape tribe, and they have actually told us because it is not their nation that has been wronged by this slur, that they would rather defer to the NAACP.
Right,
Is there any name suggested on their behalf?
For the other townships?
they haven't, we've compiled a list that included all the ones that Dr. Jackson named off.
There are about as many names as there are people
Yeah.
suggesting names.
Yeah, I had believed that it was an Indian name and did a little research, and all I could find was documentation that it was simply called the N-word Creek
Yeah,
until 1875.
Is that
So
by
this is
chance the-
documented, and the Indian name stuff is just an oral history. It's probably wrong.
is that by chance the unwritten or unofficial
Unwritten,
history
yes,
by
page
Lester
10.
Hoffman? Yes, cool. That's awesome. We actually have a link to that on our website, so.
But
We have a link to that on our website,
Cool.
actually, in the history section. Okay.
What's the name of were the people who dug in Minnesota Kills that archaeological dig, were they able to identify the tribes that were there? at that location?
You mean at the site by the bike
I'm
park?
not familiar enough with Don Klein's research.
And that was like-
for that.
14,000-year-olds. They weren't necessarily. I don't know if we even know what tribes were around then. We're talking about thousands of years ago.
Yeah. I understood that the Lenape were a local tribe, but apparently that's not the case. So they're disavowing that.
Not disavowing, they relocated. Where did you say they were? I know that there is.
They're in Oklahoma.
Right. But then there's also some folks that, among other tribes that are in, I want to say Kansas and Michigan. Yeah. So,
I think to your, I don't know, but I think to your question, I think the archaeological dig is from significantly before that.
if anyone wants to see it, we have an exhibit for it outside in the lobby. Okay, Julia, I'm going to get, but no one's here for Post Office Bridge Road, and we haven't been contacted by.
I'm not seeing anyone standing up in the audience, so I'm assuming no. I am meeting with the PennDOT engineers next Wednesday, to discuss this further, so I will have more information for you shortly.
Okay.
Oh, that's the orange, or the water one, the ones that need to be filled with water?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Michael, we have the formation of the Smithfield Township Economic Development Committee. We were talking about maybe formulating more ideas so we can formalize that committee, hopefully in the next couple of meetings.
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss it briefly at the last meeting. I still think that there's a value of having, such a committee. I also think I see when there are some committees that, we have in this township, like our environmental committee that seems to actually make some progress on doing things when we have a committee. So I think there's a
Yes.
value of having a committee, even though I don't love lots of committees generally, if it means we can move things along. And I think it could be a group that could be very helpful, especially as it relates to any time that we might want to be updating our ordinances.
Sure.
And moving forward, I think about, again, when we created our economic development zone, I'm sort of surprised at that time we didn't have a committee that, if we had, would have
Right.
probably spearheaded that effort.
Right.
I'm not saying we didn't end up with a good result, but maybe we would have ended up with a better.
Well, it'll
result.
probably be a little bit more diverse than members of the planning commission.
Well, we have so many things to look at in that ordinance that should be changed. It would be nice to have a group that was really dedicated to that.
And as we have discussed, on signage ordinance, obviously changing ordinances takes a big amount of bandwidth of Julia's time. We're sort of taking them one at a time, which I think makes sense. And not that every ordinance needs to be updated for economic development, but certainly a lens that is important when reviewing these things.
Tell me what you think of this. I think what you see in Middle Smithfield and Delaware Water Gap, which also have their own.
I don't think we need a staff.
Yeah, sure, but I guess what I'm saying about them is they also do things on beautification, community events, those types of things. I would like to see that type of involvement too. Both, and I don't want to talk about more committees, but I think inside that is often missed. The small business perspective, that some of these events that you see in Stroudsburg or Delaware Water Gap, and even to some extent Middle Smithfield, bring in economic activity for the smaller businesses too.
Yeah.
I also think we should invite anybody in the planning commission who might want to join this.
Yeah, I think the planning commission is particularly interested in this subject. And also anyone, honestly, just like we've done for other committees, anyone from the public that's interested in sort of participating in township affairs and wants to be able to have another voice outside of public comment can participate.
I agree.
And
Good idea.
I think we should try to formalize it by resolution.
Okay,
And unfortunately, we have 2 weeks in between this meeting and the next one.
okay.
And we can set a number of people that should be on it, because anyone can go and participate. but
And if
we're
you
gonna
set
want-
one, can you disband them if you're like, this is not
Sure.
helpful? It's wasting people's time?
All right, that's why most of these ad hoc committees are board authorized or by resolution, because by ordinance, then, you have to advertise to get rid of them. Whereas this allows them to be set up kind of rapidly, like Alex is leading the committee for the master site plan grant for Rivers Edge Bike Park. And that's kind of ad hoc and it disappears once that grant is closed out. So they're mission oriented rather than general.
Okay, I like that.
I think the first real task should be chewing through the entire code of ordinances and trying to update things, which is just,
Or maybe start with the economic development zone,
yeah.
which
But-
was honestly moved pretty quickly and, you know, we paid a lot of money for Tom Committee to help, but
But there are other things like,
Really
if
quick.
you go through the whole code,
yeah,
sort of
quickly
like,
through many iterations, but.
Yeah.
But we do know there's little loopholes that we want to close up in there and they might be take that on too.
For sure. And I think a fair amount of our ordinances address larger businesses, but don't necessarily address or encourage some of the smaller innovation that we see. Like we have intricacies that allow like a special event permits like a food truck festival, things like that. But we don't necessarily have clearer rules that are going to allow someone that lives here that wants to set that up. You know,
Do we know, is 4.7 not like a state economic?
yeah, it's part of the state economic, I forget exactly, it
Well,
keeps up
exactly.
innovation
You
zone.
know, so I don't even know really how we interact with that. That's something
To
else.
some extent, the economic development zone follows that pretty much to a T, except where there's more economic development zone than there is innovation zone. That's because, the innovation zone is a little bit more manufacturing oriented than this.
Okay.
Because they have like tax credits, which are saleable and different things like that at the federal level.
All right. What do we have to do to
Oh,
put that
well,
on the agenda? Just put it on the agenda for next week and
Yeah.
advertise it?
yeah, well, we don't have to advertise it, but
It's on the agenda.
correct.
Okay.
So we'll just have to draw up a resolution. So I was thinking, if you have time, you can talk to Middle Smithfield and see how they formalize theirs. I don't think there's a resolution, Delaware Water Gap, but James Breckfield is the economic development manager in Middle Smithfield, and I
Okay.
briefly talked to him about this, and he said he would be happy to talk to anyone.
Okay. I'll reach out.
Cool. All right. Under new business on the consent agenda, there's really only one item, which is I, because I'm going to let the record reflect that the B there is a presentation, so it's not something we're approving, so that's going to go from 2 to new business B. So the only thing to consider under the consent agenda is the public officials policy renewal, which is annually. And Brown and Brown suggests that we renew with Greenwich, and that's who we currently have at $17,290. So that covers the elected official. This is basically
Insurance.
right. Well, it's insulation like on like the Shriver case, for instance. This pays for the defense and helps make sure that we're not at a loss. And they tell us if we're covered, if we're not covered.
Julie, were there any, oh, sorry. We asked questions?
Yeah.
Was there any major changes from last year?
We've had a couple more cases come on, and I think we had one fall off, so our rate did go up, I think they said by 7%. Which is pretty normal, but as long as we have some better years, if you can see it, could hopefully go back
That's
down.
Okay.
Yeah. But no changes in policy numbers or amounts.
Well, coverages are all the same.
All the same.
Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
motion to approve the consent agenda.
Which by Mr. Levenheim, do I hear a second?
I will second.
Second, Mr. Albert, any questions? Okay, Christine?
I'm a little unclear about what exactly that is. It sounds like an insurance policy,
It is,
like a liability policy.
essentially,
That's type.
its primary use is gonna be coverage for litigation against the township. So, generally, our solicitor is going to be the person to cover that. But if there's some larger case, for example, the water gap, federal lawsuit that is now dismissed with prejudice, that was covered, the defense of that was covered by that insurance.
Right. And so what was the change year over year?
7%, went up 7%.
I think it was 7%. I might be.
And do you have dollars, are you allowed to tell us dollar figures on that?
What do you mean dollar figures?
Like,
Like,
yeah.
how much this is?
Of the,
This is
Yeah,
public,
yeah.
right?
yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
it's $17,290.
thank you.
No worries.
We probably got much more than that back from the.
Oh, for sure.
Cost of the federal. Dare I say how
That
much?
cost quite a bit. I don't know if you have an idea of how much that cost, but it was a lot.
I've never put together the actual numbers at this point yet, but I can tell you, I believe my time alone was over 105 hours spent on documents.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it doesn't cover that, but it covers the legal,
yes, yes.
which was many, just a
Yeah,
couple long.
and it was a lot.
Is it possible for you guys to speak up? It's really, really hard to hear you guys sometimes. You're talking to each other, so you have to project to the back.
Yeah. Well, we're working on that part too with lavaliers, hopefully eventually. This was supposed to work pretty great, but it isn't anymore. Okay,
Just said, I was asking how much we got back from that $17,000 last year, because we had 2 major cases and it was significantly more, so. We definitely want to pay for this sort of insurance, otherwise we'll be up Sambo Creek.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, all right. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, no worries.
Without any pejoratives intended.
Yeah, this time.
Okay,
Okay, so item B under new business is going to be the presentation.
well, we have to vote on that, yeah?
We did vote.
We first and seconded,
I
we
do
didn't vote.
not have a
Oh.
vote.
I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry about that.
That's right.
All right, next is the presentation from Pocono Wildlife Rehabilitation and Education Center. So.
Hello,
Hi. Come up.
how are you?
Good,
Thank you.
you've got a better voice than we do.
It's been a while, but yeah, it comes from teaching high school for 30 years at Strasburg. So that's just because I only have one, but I'll give it to the fellow ESU grad.
That's cool.
So, you know, it's really strange. We've been going around to all of the municipalities we serve. And this is the first time I'm in a room where I don't feel like I know too many people. So I'm going to introduce myself and the new executive directors of the Pocono Wildlife Center. We're going to kind of start at the beginning, and I'll keep it as brief as I can for those of you who don't know who we are. First of all, how many of you have ever heard of Pocono Wildlife Rehab Center? Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better. We are a nonprofit, volunteer 501c3 organization that has 3 major goals. First goal is what our name sounds like. We take care of injured, orphaned, sick, and displaced wildlife for the purpose of getting them back out into the wild. This is 2024. This is what people expect in the way of services from our residents and from the visitors to our county. We have been doing this now for over 40 years. So if you haven't heard of us, I don't know why, but we've been around. Right down the road in Cherry Valley, in fact. I did this for 40 some years and I'm old and I'm tired. And so I have found the very best new blood to take over the center and care for it and make it what it really needs to be, more than what one person could do. And I'm going to introduce Janine, who has some things for you, and Susie, who are the new executive directors. This is Janine Tancredi and Susan Downing.
Black bear behind there.
We are actually the only black bear cub rehab center in the entire state. So that is a badge of honor for us. By the way, they are not released in Monroe County, so I'm not responsible for any of that. Letting you know, having come from Tobyhanna before I moved to Cherry Valley, we were responsible for everything that was in everybody's backyards. Don't go there. So we have 2 other really important goals. The first one is that back when I started this was a kindness project, but now it has grown into something much, much more. When we were kids, you could pick up things and you could play with them and put them back or whatever we did. Those days are long gone. Deer get COVID, 40% of deer have tested positive for COVID. Baby raccoons carry parasites and diseases that can kill us. We have bird flu now. We have all kinds of what we call zoonotic diseases that can kill people. So those days of taking it home and caring for itself, albeit illegal these days, are gone. We need to protect human health and safety. And we do that in several ways. One is we answer the phone probably 20 out of 24 hours a day because we have a staff of people to answer the phone. That means if you go home, I'll use an example of a Monroe County Commissioner who shall remain named. He has some rental properties and window wells. You know what window wells are? Skunks like to fall in them. And then he calls and says, what do I do? We can either give you instructions on how to get them out safely, or because these two have capture and transport licenses, and we now have a team of people who are, when we have the time, we can actually come out and do that. We will not do wildlife pest control. That's a whole separate license, but we can resolve those issues quickly and easily to the safety and betterment of the community, people who live here and people who are visiting here. We provide assistance to the Game Commission. And since they've taken over, we're doing a tremendous amount more in the way of diagnostics. We're seeing a whole lot of shot birds. And I don't mean game birds. I mean, like we have a bald eagle that was shot. We just got an vulture that was shot. So we're involved in law enforcement and taking care of helping the Game Commission with those things. We help local police. You guys are you a Stroud Regional here?
No,
You're not, so you're state police, so you don't even have anybody. That's okay, because I'm gonna tell you, they responded to Penn Estates not long ago for an injured deer that had to be euthanized, because most adult deer that are hurt have to be euthanized. They got there, Penn State security there, no, touch it. Stroud Regional was there, not gonna touch it. Because if you discharge a firearm, you gotta fill out paperwork. Guess who had to do it? Okay, it's not our regular thing, but we will take care of what we need to take care of so that we can make sure that people are safe and people are educated and all of that. In fact, I'll be at Smithfield Elementary coming up very soon. So the reason why we're here is to help you guys get on board with what we're doing so you can maximize our services. But the problem is that we are no longer in the days of my doing this by myself as a little lady who's doing this on the side from teaching. This is a full-fledged organization, and there are only about 30 in the entire state. We cover 9 counties. This is our home county. We don't want to cover 9 counties, but nobody else wants to do this because it's not state funded. We have to pay for our licenses. We have to pay for our insurance. We have, you can't just do this about insurance anymore. We're talking about insurance. So really important stuff. So it costs a lot of money to do this now. And so we're no longer at the days where we can get by on an open house and a couple of dinner fundraisers to keep our doors open. So we are reaching out to every single municipality in person and asking you if you can fit into your budget $1,500 a year to help to support what we're doing so that we can keep our doors open into the future and continue to provide the services that we provide at no charge to your community, because we really think it's a very important service. This is not like dog and cat rescue, not to belittle that, but there's nowhere near as much involved as there is in what we're doing. Anything you want to add, Susan or Jenny?
I think you did a really good job of covering it.
I've been doing this a little while.
One thing I would add is that with the amount of building that's being done, it's more and more, we're getting more and more calls because we are invading into so much of
They
the
know that
wildlife.
up here. They all know that story up here.
So that alone.
And we were
is-
involved in like
We
all
get
of the
so many phone calls from people, hey, there's a coyote in my backyard.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was part of his travels. So it's even more, we get more phone calls because of the spread of, or the urban spread. So it really is important
You take
what
care
we
of
do.
wild sheep, by chance?
That would be Pocono Animal Rescue.
Have you heard of this?
They are a large animal rescue. They take care of the horses, the cows, the sheep, the pigs, the goats. We are native wildlife. So
Sheep and so on.
There's been a sheep roaming for
I've
the
heard.
last year and a half.
I don't know.
people do call us.
I think
about
it's
it.
wild now,
I
but
didn't know
yeah.
it was that long, but yeah, I've seen.
Year and a half, about?
Well, he's managing, isn't he?
He is.
He's gonna have need a big shearing. I just heard of a sheep that was caught after a couple of years in the wild and there, you could barely move anymore. Oh, that's sad. Does anybody here have any questions for us while we're here? Okay, so I will leave this to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to, I'm Jean Turn, and I want to thank you for releasing some possums on our property last spring.
They're wonderful, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're very
it was
helpful
great,
creatures.
yeah, and they were very healthy and
they
weren't a
protect them.
pain.
Oh, very cool. Thank you very much. We'll definitely take that under advisement. And, at some point, this year, probably in the near future, we'll be talking about community contributions, so.
I was gonna ask, how does that work? For my betterment, might as well, while these people are here, if you don't mind,
Simply up to the discretion. The line item, I think, is about $10,000 that bills.
it exists.
Correct. And they have to provide some sort of public service or be affiliated with the township. So, for example, the WA has the partnership with us in the parks, Little League, let's see, Pocono.
All those things get our money back. So the budget right for this year is 10,000.
Right.
Okay.
We gave United Way 1,000, I think, from leftover contributions
Wow.
last year. Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't have any other new business, so any public comments? Okay, I'll let you go first then, Christine, next.
Okay. My name is Janice Medwick. I am a resident of Lake Valhalla. I am an officer, board member of the Valhalla Road Maintenance Fund Incorporated for 34 years, and I'm also now the president of the Lake Association. And I'm here because not on such a positive thing such as the wildlife situation, but we have a very bad situation in our neighborhood that I really feel that we need to address with the board tonight. We have a junk removal.
It's Alice.
Yes, it is. Okay, red line junk removal. He started his business approximately 3 years ago in Lake Valhalla. 2.5 years ago, we brought it to the attention of, the zoning officer. And at that time, he came out, he investigated and, found that there was no permits or anything applied for, or granted to the owner at that time. Here we are 2.5 years later on, the business is still going on. Now, I understand that he was taken before Judge Germano, just recently came, he was found guilty and he was told he had to remove his business from the property. And he was given a very tiny slap on the wrist with a $25 fine.
Yeah.
Well, here it is 60 days today, to the date, okay, and the business is still booming.
Right.
He also, started excavating his property. And in the, we
He's
were,
moving earth.
excuse me?
He's moving earth.
Oh, yes,
Oh.
quite a bit.
That's
We
all
were,
the conservation districts.
they were already notified.
Okay.
But he started excavating his property, and when he started excavating his property, what he did was he caused severe damage to our drainage system in our development. Well, when this happened, again, we spoke to the zoning officer about it. And I came to find out, I should say, found out that he never applied for any erosion and sedimentation permits either.
Okay.
And my understanding is anytime you excavate more than a garden area, you have to have some kind of report done on this. This man has excavated his property to the point where he is literally in a bowl now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's like he installed a huge wall in the back of his property, no permits. Put a new deck on the front of his house, no permits. Okay, now this has been going on for quite a while. This excavating is costing our development probably anywhere, I'm gonna just take a wild guess because we don't have all the figures in yet, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to repair. Okay, so we're actually at the point right now where he was sent a letter from our attorney and we're gonna litigate. Okay. Our problem is now too, it's also causing a safety issue. There's icing, terrible icing, because of the runoff from his property. And particularly on the cul-de-sac that he lives on, Otter Lane, which we use as an emergency parking area in wintertime. So we now have the issue of a possible liability with someone falling, getting hurt. And it's also a very difficult thing to try to remove this ice from this water bottle. The Monroe County Conservation Office has been notified. They are gonna come out and they are gonna investigate. And also, a major concern with his business is that he is advertising that he provides hazardous waste removal and disposal. Now, this is in a residential area. We're zoned residential. You're not allowed to have any kind of commercial businesses in our development. Not only is it an eyesore, it's damaging our roads, it's dropping our property values. And I feel as if nothing is being done about it. Okay, 60 days has passed. And by this time now, something else should have been done. I mean, after 30 days, I would have thought that maybe, we would have revisited with the magistrate, take it to the court of common pleas, where we're probably gonna get a more favorable outcome. Something has to be done about that.
So I understand your concern, and I actually briefly spoke to Judge Levy, who's now our magistrate. When something court orders defied before, you're going to have to bring the complaint for the same thing again. So zoning officer was not here when I heard that, so we're gonna have to speak to Mr. Wolf about that, because then this gentleman would be liable for not only the first offenses he was cited for, but also defying that court order, potentially. So that is something that has to be explored, but that's the extent that I know based on that conversation.
Wait, so Ken's gotta go out and basically cite it again, and then he brings that to
And-
Levy?
Right, because the court doesn't enforce these things. That's responsibility that now the state police could enforce a contempt order, things like that, but that hasn't happened yet. So this is gonna take us, zoning officer refiling, so. But I only learned that about 4:30 PM today, so.
Okay, is there any way to expedite this? This has been going on for 2.5 years, and it seems as if it's being postponed, delayed. There's always some kind of excuse. I mean, this is really a serious issue in our development right now.
Sure.
Like I said, it's damaging the roads, it's causing liability issues, it's hazardous, and it's a safety issue in our development. Not to mention the fact, my question is to the township supervisors is, to me, it's almost like rewarding bad behavior. There's, for every action, there should be a reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, when I raised my children, they knew if you did something wrong, you're gonna have a penalty, pay
Yeah.
for it. It
Sure.
seems to me that when 2.5 years goes by, okay, and nothing is done about a situation like this, he's getting away with it. He's basically thumbing his nose at the township, at the judge, at everyone.
Right.
Exactly, and I find it very upsetting to me. I lived there for
Yeah.
35 years,
Sure.
and it's not, like I said, it's just out of control.
Well, the first thing I find upsetting is this. I followed this through the whole fall last year. And I know the frustration on the part of the zoning officer. And I felt the same, where every time this would come up to a court date, it would be postponed,
Yes.
postponed. And finally, a $25 fine. I mean, this is ludicrous.
Right,
And I'm hoping that under this, our new magistrate judge, that we'll be able to expedite some of these cases, which are cases where it affects not really one person, it's an entire community.
yes.
And I wish there was some way we could find, to link this to any kind of criminal, activity that we could send the state police out for, because this guy obviously is a scofflaw that doesn't want to listen to anybody.
Well, if he's not abiding by what the magistrate has required, does that not make it contempt and the state police can get involved? I don't know the answer to that question.
You would have to bring that. The court doesn't, the court doesn't control itself and say, oh, okay, well, you've defied this now. Someone has to bring that cause of action.
Someone,
The state police are not gonna get involved in contempt.
Okay.
Contempt matters. That's something that would have to be filed with the court of common pleas and first, and their hearing held with the judge, and
So
because
Ken,
there could be civil contempt, criminal contempt, indirect criminal contempt, indirect civil contempt, all different types of contempt, so.
Ken's gotta go out and find him again, or cite him again?
Correct.
This is the first time I'm hearing this. Was an enforcement notice issued by Ken? That he sent an enforcement notice? That's a specific item that you send out saying that I've inspected your property, you're in violation of zoning ordinance 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, that was done a while ago when he went to court.
Not there yet, okay? All right, and then if you want to take an appeal of this, you have to then file an appeal with the zoning hearing board. A lot of the motocross cases.
He did not
are dealing with. So did he file any appeal to the zoning board of an enforcement notice if he got an enforcement notice?
No,
He
So
didn't get an
he got an
notice?
enforcement notice?
he got enforcement notice.
He didn't file an appeal, all right, so then he's conclusively presumed
Guilty.
to be in violation, so I'm not sure what might have been done before District Judge Germano, but again, it's a conclusive presumption that he's in violation. And if Germano just imposed a fine of $25, that's not really gonna do a whole lot.
Right.
Obviously, the township, if it wants to, can take the matter to common pleas court, but if I'm hearing from what this young lady is saying, that the attorney for the association is going to be filing something, then the things that the township may do may be helpful, but it may not be.
I guess my question is, like, why not refile the case for
What, do we need to refile it? Can we
consecutive
just-
offenses?
Do we need to refile it? Can we just go to?
If I may for a second, our attorney is only going to address the Valhalla Road Maintenance Fund issues, which
Yeah.
is the icing, the flooding,
yeah.
the damage he did to our roads. He can't go in, he's not gonna be able to, we're not an HOA, so he can't go in and enforce anything, concerning the permits, the huge wall he put up in his backyard, the excavating. But the Monroe County Conservation District and Monroe County Municipal Waste Authority has been notified, and they're gonna be investigating
Oh,
the city.
Waste Authority, they have police, so that's going to be.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're gonna be sending the municipal waste management police out to investigate, because he actually separates his trash, tires, metal things, everything, and he's storing this on his property. And we know, we've seen with our own eyes that he even has been burying things like shelves in his yard and everything. So, yeah, and it's ridiculous. Yeah, we don't know what else either, but it's really out of control here, and something really needs to be done about it.
So if the former enforcement notice did not cover these issues, then he needs to go out, inspect, make sure these additional issues are occurring, and send another enforcement notice.
Yeah.
So now you have him with respect to those items also, and whether he takes an appeal or not to the zoning board, who knows, but you want to not be stuck with just your prior enforcement notice, which may only deal with one, A, B, and C, where you want to be able to get them with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, et cetera, as we're hearing
Okay,
about.
so
Excavation, walls, no permits, that kind of thing.
So Ken's gotta go in for the other things that may not have been cited last time.
Yes.
But for the previous citation that went to court, was indicated to be guilty, he's still doing it. Does Ken have to go back?
I don't think Ken has to go back on that because he definitely has been found guilty. Now, obviously, if he says, well, I stopped doing it, well, okay, then Ken has to go back and show that
It's just
he
Ken has to
hasn't
go
stopped
to
doing it,
prove that he's still doing
that
it.
he's still doing it. But we should also get that other information too.
This, it's not a great picture, but I
Yeah.
took this on the way down the
I
hill.
was.
This is today.
Yeah, obviously he's still doing it.
Okay.
I think it's a question of,
Yeah.
does the judge need
Good to meet you.
does the judge need a formal document from Ken saying that he is still doing it? It sounds like maybe he does. Can we get that?
Yeah.
Hey, Jacob. This is a question for Ron, and Ron, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
It's okay.
obviously there's something at issue here, and it says the enforcement procedure remedies in our zoning ordinance. If there's a civil enforcement proceeding commenced by the township, and if he's found guilty, he's got to pay a judgment of not more than $500 plus court costs. And it goes on to say that if he continues to violate it, it's $500 a day. So it sounds
In our ordinance?
Up to that.
Yeah.
Up to that amount. It doesn't have to be 500,
No.
up to that amount.
Right.
So why isn't that being done? Someone somewhere dropped the ball somewhere.
It is up to the magisterial district judge to decide that fine. and
So,
the judge
Unless it
decided-
comes up to him again, he has no clue what's going on. The judge,
You would be correct.
okay?
And that's exactly what we're trying to ascertain, which route we're gonna take, because no one wants to let this keep going.
No.
Ma'am, may I have your name, please?
Donna Kilmaris,
Can you spell that for me, please?
Kelmeris.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure we tell Ken exactly what he has to do.
Sure.
So he's going he's recording for anything over and above what he's already reported and what this individual guilty of. But then he also needs to document something for Levy that he is still in violation of what he was found, the existing one, as then Levy can do something about it.
And Levy may still want a hearing. Levy may say, no, I've got to give the property owner constitutional due process, which is a hearing, notice of the violation and opportunity to be heard.
But he already had that.
But if you're gonna do continuing violations, Levy may say, I'm not gonna just do continuing violations out of the box. I want a hearing. So he
Well,
has notice
continuing
and opportunity
violation-
to be heard.
With a continuing violation, though, is that a new enforcement notice?
It
on
might,
top of-
I don't know if it's
So-
a new enforcement notice, but Levy may want a new hearing. I can't speak for
Well,
the
if
judge.
he hasn't
that's up to
heard it,
him.
sure, right.
But I would think he'd want a new hearing.
Doesn't he get his 30 days then to reply or no? Does he get his 30 days to reply to these notices?
It would be whenever the judge schedules the hearing. There's really no time frame. You know.
Where does that, I guess, what you're asking, Robert, is whether or not he can appeal the continuing
I
violations.
wasn't at the hearing with Germano. There should have been a judgment that was entered for $25 a day, and if it's not done, it continues to be $25 a day. If that wasn't entered, then it's not entered. You gotta get it entered. You know.
Confident that was entered, because that's what we're all, talking.
But was it $25 a day?
No.
The first time I ever heard that, I thought it was just $25, period.
And he should have had, now again, I'm not saying that I should have been there because I would have made a difference, because maybe not with Judge Germano, in all due respect, but you have to have to say, what are we doing moving forward, Your Honor? Is this a one-time fine, or are we moving forward with this? Because if you don't bring that issue up, the judge is just not gonna remember that or not even think about it.
You and then Christine. And then, hold on, but you're gonna be after Christine, who's gonna be
It's
after
okay,
this
go.
gentleman.
Just a little background. I'm the neighbor of this person. 2 years ago, I talked to the zoning officer. I emailed you guys and you've been CC'd on pictures. For 2 years now, I've talked to Wolf about the guy. I've sent him pictures. I've met with him. Wolf even came out there when he was destroying a boat in his driveway. The driveway is 100 feet from my house. Since the start of his trash hauling business, he's gone from one trailer to 2 large ones and a container truck. He's got 2 pickup trucks and an employee that comes over every day to drive a container truck. Now, again, we all talk about this. He went to court in December. Everybody hears we have more than enough evidence. This is supposed to be an open and shut case. All I want from you guys is I want to know the status and I want to know, can you enforce the zoning laws? Because I'm hearing, well, he got a $25 fine. He hasn't ceased operations. He hasn't done anything. And personally, I don't think he's gonna do it. But I want to know if you can stop him, because if you can't, I will escalate it. This has gone on for 2.5 years, and God only knows what he's had in those trailers in his lot, not to mention all the damage he's done, but the zoning officer and everyone here on this board has got copies of the infrastructure that he's built on his own house, and nothing's been done. I keep asking, when is he gonna cease operations? Oh, we can't do anything, blah, 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 blah. I have yet to get a call about what's the next step. So all I'm asking is, I'm at a desperate straits now. This guy doesn't care.
Right.
It's gonna be a health and welfare issue. It's only gonna bubble up and look worse,
We all,
because you guys gotta do something.
Right, well, I think what you've heard is that the township already took action and we're trying to escalate that action. So believe me, we're not doing nothing. I understand the concern. Believe me, there's a couple other, concerns about zoning and different enforcement notices that we share too. And
I received your messages, thank you. I mean, we can't do anything because of Pennsylvania law unless we make decisions publicly, first of all. I can't respond to you and say, we're gonna do this. It's against the law for me to do that under Pennsylvania law. For us to make decisions by email, we have to make decisions right here. So that's what we're doing right now. And then I think what it sounds like, there's a lot of disappointment in what the judge had previously done. We can't control that besides with our vote. In terms of what the judge does. I mean, we're right now trying to collect all the information we have, so we know what is the next step, the best step that we can take. Which sounds like telling Ken to go out tomorrow and collect this. Ken also went, you have to know, Ken also went years ago, and as we heard, the magistrate postponed the hearing forever, right? We can't control what the magistrate does, just like you can't control it.
Again, all I want is closure that you're gonna do something, and you agree that he should be shut down.
We agree,
I don't agree with that.
100%.
We do,
Agree.
and
I mean, I agree, we have.
yes, I think certainly you've heard that same frustration from us.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt, but the young lady's gonna need your name for
Oh,
the
that is
record.
Mr. Duma.
Oh, you have
I
it?
knew who it is, yeah.
Never mind.
I think what we need here is to set up at least a tentative time schedule on what we're gonna do, when we're gonna do it, and when we can report back on what's been done.
Let's ask the zoning officer to perform that inspection tomorrow or as soonest as next possible. And our next regular meeting here is on February 28th. So at that point, we'd be able to talk about anything else that has taken place in the 2 weeks.
But what should be able to happen that time is he should be able to take that, file it,
Correct.
and provide file two. He's gonna do two, right? He's gonna do one for anything else extra that we see.
Yeah, he should do a new one for anything extra that he sees, so that gets in the loop. And whatever he sees is continuing from before, is that he should notify him it's a continuing violation and that he's going to request.
And he hands that, or gives that citation to this person,
It's not a citation.
Sorry.
It's an enforcement.
enforcement notice. And then does he give a copy to the judge?
No.
The
No,
new
because
enforcement notice gets that appeal period.
The property owner has a right to appeal the new enforcement notice to the zoning hearing board. And have the zoning hearing board.
That's for the new stuff. I'm talking about, he has said, he's been told he has to stop by a
I
judge.
think he
He's
would.
not stopped, so there's some document that says, nope, he has not stopped. That, he shouldn't have an appeal
I
process
don't know
for that.
what, yeah, I don't know what Levy would do with that.
Well, then I think we should give it to Levy, regardless.
Yes.
Janice, I'd just like to say that you're facing a new board here. Michael's our new member, and I think we're all committed much more than, let's say, some of the discourse and dissent before in finding solutions. And this is a good example. Another example is we're passing an ordinance about nuisance noise in the township. And these things are what people want because it's about quality of life. And we're trying as best we can to provide that. I think within the second-class township code where it says we're responsible for the health, welfare, and safety of the residents, this is a good example of where we're trying to find solutions.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So, because I'm learning, I've only been in this job for whatever, month. When there's a formal decision, like we are going to require that the zoning officer go and do this. How does that like formally happen? It goes in your notes as an action step and
You can request it, but you cannot instruct the zoning officer to do anything.
As far as making sure that everyone is aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
I send out a follow-up tomorrow morning that says, hey, here's all the stuff we need to do. Like the minutes got approved, we can put them in the book and get them up on the website, stuff like that. Because this one is so contentious and what is going on needs to happen imminently, I will sit down with Ken in the morning and discuss this with him. And frankly, probably get Ron on the phone to make sure Ken is exceedingly aware of what is going on and the actions that the board can request that he take. Like Jacob said, we are not allowed to say, Ken, you have to go do this.
To be clear, he has independent, it's essentially policing authority. The zoning officer investigates and we cannot meddle in that. So that's what I'm saying, that we can't tell him to do something. We can request, start a process, but we can't say, you have to cite them. By law, we're not allowed to do that.
So may I ask you then, who is his supervisor? I mean, everybody has a boss. Everyone
Correct.
has
He
someone-
reports, so as an employee, he reports to us, but he
Okay.
is certified by the Commonwealth to be the zoning officer. And when you read the code that specifies the zoning officer's responsibilities. We have supervisory authority over him as an employee, but we don't have supervisory authority when it comes to his policing activity, which is, investigating. So
That's there,
So
so,
who has supervisory over the policing of it? Over Ken?
no, he's like the chief. We don't have a police force in our township. I mean, it's,
no, just to be
hold
clear.
on, this is how
No,
the whole state works. This is not, this is 1,700 townships across the state of Pennsylvania. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's what I was gonna say to Michael's point, this is how Pennsylvania law functions. This is not a matter of our discretion. So I want you to understand that we're taking.
That it's not your fault.
I'm not trying to absolve myself. I'm absolving every municipal official that's ever existed in Pennsylvania, because that's just how the law works. And even in the municipalities where they have their own police coverage, like folks talked about Stroud Regional, they don't enforce local ordinances either. Those are still zoning matters. That's why every municipality has a zoning department. And so I have extreme confidence that we are going to get something done in this. I feel very.
There's been a
confident
major
about
change
that.
that happened downstairs in January, and that should hopefully help things move along.
Well, quite frankly, I don't see where there's any repercussion if he doesn't do his job. You know, if he doesn't feel like going down, I'll go down next week.
Yeah, there's a difference on that front.
Okay.
The zoning officer can't just ignore directives insofar as, these requests. Like we have a rational expectation he's gonna fulfill his responsibilities. If that's not occurring, then there's a
If I call him and I complain, does he have a duty to go and investigate that?
they have substantial discretion with regard to when and how they investigate it. But
Because I've called him.
Jacob saw-
And I've asked for updates. I've got nothing.
well, when there's ongoing investigations, typically there's not going to be.
Okay, I didn't know that until you brought that up tonight. But.
Jacob's also giving everyone like the law, but the reality is there's 4 people at this table who are all gonna tell Ken,
Yes.
you gotta go do something.
Yeah.
We're just saying that legally,
Right. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't appreciate the extent to which there's discretion given by state law, but it's unfortunate until the legislature changes that, that's what we can do. Christine,
So I'd like to jump back to the note on the planning commission's agenda every month for the past 2 years about discussing oversight over the zoning officer's
Right.
activities and
Sure.
looking to implement some sort of supervisory
Sure.
capacity. And what was explained to me was that, the planning commission member who brought this up, met with one of the state township associations.
PSATs,
Yeah. Right, PSATs, I believe it was.
he actually met with the wrong group, I believe.
the borough.
He met with the borough PSATs, which is a completely different
Yeah,
code,
he said.
but
Okay.
carry on.
Okay. So, well, then that kind of negates.
It might not negate it, it might be the same, it might be similar, but we just have warned that you have to pay attention to what
What might be something?
the class 2, what's it called? Second class township, code versus the borough code, which is a completely different set of rules on how to
Right.
function.
Right. So, and you're not familiar with how they differ, is that what you're saying?
I'm definitely not, I'm just starting to read.
I am,
Second class.
but for fun, not necessarily out of necessity.
Can you explain that?
Can I explain?
Your
Sure.
comment.
I appreciate knowing that the differences. Monroe County's got 16 townships and 4 boroughs, and we work integrally with East Stroudsburg Borough and Delaware Water Gap Borough. So it's nice to know when there are differences, as far as our cooperation, but they're not necessarily informative of any of our practices. There's some pretty fundamental differences, particularly on the utility front, in boroughs than townships.
Have you explored, like, have you investigated the class 2 township zoning ordinance guidelines? I mean, are you following what PSATs
Are we?
Yeah.
is
Yes.
recommending? You're following.
We're following the law, 100%.
Julia you're going this year, right, to the PSATs? I'm going to 2 full-day trainings this month as a new supervisor, and
Yeah.
of course, I've already asked a bunch of these similar questions, and enforcement is the biggest one that from talking to PSATs are like, yep, this is the thing that sucks about the state of Pennsylvania. It's really hard to enforce.
Thank you.
So just one last question here. You know, I've been dealing with the zoning officer for 2 years now. Is it under his, I mean, when do we say he knows that the guy's in variance from the zoning thing? We've talked about that. I've been in his office. So here's the zoning guy who knows the guy, the plaintiff is in violation. When is his duty to follow up and keep trying to shut the business down? Because when I talk to Ken, he goes, well, I sent him to court, they got a fine, that's it, I'm done. I mean, this is what I'm getting. I wanna know, is he gonna keep trying? What's the recourse here?
Well, the next recourse is we are going to ask him, as we just said, to go. I'm not sure he knew, I'm not sure that everyone here knew, I certainly didn't know that he had to get another one in order to bring it back to the district judge, the new district judge, in order for the district judge to effectively, I don't know, give a fine, what would he do? What does the judge do if he decides to make a judgment that he's been told he's breaking the law and he continues to break the law?
Well, he would enter a judgment if he believes that's a case of a continuing violation per day.
And what can that just be a fine? Can someone be, what are the penalties that are possible for someone that's doing this?
I don't believe the district judge would hold him in contempt. I think the judge would simply impose a fine.
A daily fine.
A daily fine. Yeah, that's what I think would.
And then if he doesn't pay those fines, then it goes to common pleas?
Then he's in contempt, and the district judge may then be able to take action himself, but your better action is always common pleas rather than at the district.
Sounds like another year.
And I don't think we should, go the pessimistic route. I think we should be realistic here, but we're going to follow through on this process that we talked about tonight. And we're going to go from there. And on the 28th, we'll have more information about that. I mean, no one here is interested in letting this fester. But what you have to understand is that municipalities don't have the strongest authority when it comes to directly shutting things down. I mean, DEP, Conservation District, all these other agencies that are generally arms of the state have much more teeth to be able to shut somebody down. John, from experience, if you mess with DEP, you're eventually going to have a pretty significant issue.
Yeah, but I can tell you, it's equally slow there as well. But yes, they are the 900-pound gorilla.
Well, Mr. Bragg, just to let you know, when I did speak, I spoke to Jackie from the Municipal Waste Authority.
Okay,
And like I said, they are sending out their police force.
correct.
But I also spoke to John Motz.
Yeah.
Okay, and John even said to me that, they're gonna definitely come out and they're gonna investigate. They're gonna keep the township in the loop. They're gonna come back to the township.
Oh, yeah, whenever they perform an inspection, we always get copies when it's in our municipality,
Yes.
so.
Because one of the main concerns that he was concerned about too is the fact that with all the excavating he's doing,
Correct.
he didn't lay out any kind of plan for any kind of silt.
I was gonna say, there's no
Yeah.
silt socks on that property.
No, there isn't. And if you take a ride, and I don't expect you guys to come out, but if
I certainly would.
yeah, I would say if you were to take a ride down, you'll see, he actually dug from the road straight down on 3 sides of this property, so he's like in a bowl now, so.
And it's all water.
It's
Yeah.
mud, water, and it's coming out onto the road, and one of our biggest fears from the road maintenance department is that in wintertime, God forbid, there's an icy situation coming down, that's a very steep road coming down in a sharp bend.
Right.
You come down, you miss. You're no longer going just down a nice little embankment, now you're gonna probably flip, and you're just gonna flip and you're gonna land into,
That's
his front yard,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And I understand what you say about not, about erring on being optimistic and not pessimistic.
Yeah.
I understand that, but if I were you, I'd go in thinking pessimistic, because we sent a letter from our attorney to him. And the request was that he was to contact our attorney to set an on-site meeting with us and the contractors There was
You know,
no.
there's no way he's gonna do that.
Correct.
Even with road maintenance, we have been sending him letters since 2020, I believe it is.
Yeah.
We've given him every opportunity to come in and to work with him, to even allow him to do excavating and work with him again. There is no,
Yeah.
Last year, we
Yeah.
sat down with him, last year, that's what, we sat down with him, the board. Requested, told him what we want done, requested,
things,
you know,
right.
5 things,
right,
he did nothing,
nothing.
not one thing.
He said he was going to though.
Well, he needs,
He
he's,
promised he was going
I'm sure he
to.
promised the same thing to the judge.
And he just, yeah, but thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that you're looking into
No,
what you're going to.
absolutely. And it's best that we have this multi-agency approach here because the conservation district is going to have a much more readily available thing. And especially the waste authority too, especially with the potential risk of hazardous waste.
Yeah.
That is even more unbelievable than the rest of it.
Yes.
Um,
It's a concern to the residents there too, because what kind of hazardous waste? What are
Sorry.
you doing with it? Are you burying it or what are you doing with it?
Just so I know off the top of my head, what is the name of his?
It's called
Redline.
Redline Junk and Redline Junk Removal and Dumpsters. Yeah, he's got a
Yeah,
website,
he's got a
he's got Facebook and everything.
Red line, what? Dump-
Redline Junk Removal and
Junk.
Dumpsters.
I sent you guys pictures.
Yeah, I got,
Yeah, I don't, when did you send them? Cause I don't have them in my inbox.
you know, I got them.
Were they today?
No, they were this month. They were like a couple weeks ago, right?
Just to show us what kind of individual.
I'm waiting for the operations to cease.
I know.
This is the kind of individual dealing with this was on his Facebook page,
Uh-huh.
right before he went to court. He wanted to know if anybody knew Ken Wolf personally,
Okay,
and there's some comments back there.
oh,
This is what you're dealing with.
sure,
Yeah, so.
no. Certainly appreciate,
Jacob, it looks like you weren't copied on the emails.
oh,
That was
okay.
my apology, I missed it.
No, that's,
I never got them.
alright. Well, make sure that we're settled on that.
Brad has.
Yeah, right.
Hi, I really appreciate the discussion here, everyone's input. And it begs the question I have. So within the townships, the scope of your work, non-compliance is unfortunately a big chunk of what you're doing. And the discussion I'm seeing, I'm asking, is there a framework and a time frame for dealing with these issues? Include like oversight of various individuals like Ken's work, and when someone puts a complaint in, is there a structure for the way you deal with these things?
Right.
And a time frame? Is it ad hoc? I'm seeing different people know different things about what's going on, some people are aware, some people are not. So I'm just curious how you guys work, and pardon my ignorance.
Well, I'm also ignorant to it, which is, so I actually met with Ken yesterday, to ask some of the exact same questions. And there is somewhat of a filing of grievances. But I will say some people will phone call, some people, when it comes to complaints. And I actually just met with Julia too, and again, I'm just recommending, because as a single person, I'm not enforced, you know, it's a board of supervisors that makes decisions, right? But recommended to Ken that absolutely every complaint is, there's actually a complaint form you can fill out. I don't know if you guys use the actual complaint form that the township has. So I would recommend to you, it's not required that you do it, but I would recommend you formally use the complaint form. And I recommended to Ken that he ask people to formally use the complaint form, because then it's documented. And then also whenever we're launching all this new document server, what's that
Yes,
called?
It's called Laserfish. We've been in discussions and doing research for probably the better part of a year at this point, to help upgrade our digital management system. We were at a point briefly, where you could, process zoning permits and fill everything out online. And then unfortunately, the program broke and we couldn't fix it. So we're in the process now of updating our entire digital system. So we have automated workflows for permits and for complaints. So we'll be able to track these things with that digital management.
There's a hope that will get better. obviously, because I think there's recognition from these conversations with the planning commission, from this board, that it is not going the way we want it to. We're not here saying everything's hunky-dory, you know, why are you yelling at us? We also recognize that it's not working well, and we are taking certain steps that we can legally take to try to improve that. So, yeah, I definitely recommend, if ever you want to make a complaint, and please share with your friends, that you put it on the formal sort of township complaint form. And because then what I told, I mean, I was mentioning this in our HR discussion, but that, you know, if Ken has a formal complaint, those are the ones he has to definitely go and do. I mean, I know we can't
No,
ultimately
I know what
say,
you're saying.
yeah. Because, and then he can have record for what has been done, which is also coming up. I mean, you also see, if you were, that was anyone here at the hearing for the zoning hearing board for the motocross?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so you can also see, even when there's someone appeals it, it still takes forever, bloody forever to change something.
Yeah, with the zoning hearing board and the motocross, the complaint was filed by Ken in September 18th. By the time they heard it, it was what, January 29th, and I can't remember, somewhere in the last couple.
Well, they had to have 60 days, right, to appeal?
No, 30 days.
30 days to appeal.
But you have 30 days and you miss the deadline. Let's say you have 30 days and you appeal on the 29th day. Okay, you're gonna miss the next hearing, okay? They missed that. Well, then there was something where the lawyer for the appellant was unavailable. So then they missed another day. So this goes on and on. So here we're sitting here in January with a zoning hearing board on this complaint. And in the meantime, we've been able to pretty much get to the end of passing a noise ordinance. I mean, in all that time, we could pass an ordinance. And what was good about the ordinance, and this brings up another thing about zoning rules.
It's not passed yet, but we're close.
We're about
We're about to pass.
to pass, excuse me. We're waiting for the hearing. But what's interesting is this: if it's outside of the zoning part of the code, it doesn't have to go through that process. So for instance, with this noise ordinance, when it's passed, it'll be part of the nuisance chapter of the code, where it says that, okay, if you're creating this noise, we can come out, and if we, let's say the zoning officer or the enforcement officer ascertains that you have a complaint, we can put up a fine right there. You don't have to wait 30 days and have a hearing and everything. It's ridiculous for anything like this. And this is some of the frustration we go through with all the codes that are all the part of the zoning code that we have to enforce.
Is there a clearly defined escalation path for non-compliance?
I can't hear you, sir.
Is there a clearly defined escalation path for non-compliance, or things fall off the schedule as these? Is there like, well, this is by this date, there's some kind of defined escalation that can happen that the township is aware of?
Not that I know.
The defined escalations that you were talking about are, you know, when an investigation is concluded and it warrants a complaint to the district judge, then that's the escalation at that point.
But like with Ken's work, he does his work, he serves an issue, he issues a sort of whatever.
The enforcement notice.
Enforcement thing, and if it doesn't, if it's not responded to, does it just die?
No, if it's not responded to, then it's presumed, you're presumed guilty, and then we proceed.
No, he needs to, Ken to respond to it, so.
Yeah, Ken, if Ken, he issues the document and the compliance lingers on, does he know to go back? Or how does he know that what he issued is being complied with? Is there a structure that, a time frame? This was not issued here, and then it wasn't.
I would say that's not formally really how zoning works, unfortunately. Like, we do have follow-ups, especially when they're court-related, and there's a public docket, of that.
Right, yeah, I understand that.
And to clarify specifically, when a zoning officer sends out enforcement notice, there's the date that they send the enforcement notice, but then what is more important is the date that the person receives the information. So in the case of BMX, Ken sent that letter on September 18th, I believe, but it wasn't received by the person until October 2nd. And that October 2nd date is when the 30-day period starts running. That 30-day period is within the one where the applicant has time to appeal to the zoning hearing board or do nothing. At that point, once that 30-day period is done, Ken does not issue enough of these that it's something, you know, where he issues 50 of them. And we need to turn around at any point and make sure they don't go through the tracks, drop through the cracks. It's more of a, hey, this one's on the docket. I don't think we've ever had more than 3 enforcement notices active at one point within that 30-day probationary period at the time. So from there, it's him paying attention to it. And then if the person does comply, everything goes away and it's okay. If the person does not comply and doesn't issue an appeal to the zoning hearing board, that's when we see that that person is in defiance of it and we have to take action on the MBJ. If they decide to appeal to the zoning hearing board, then that's when that whole process starts, and Robert already explained that.
Is there a mechanism that chugs through as this process is going on so that everyone on the board is aware of the situation, a particular complaint? Because various folks know different things.
In so much as that when you get your credit card statement, you know how to pay your bill. We don't have a massive spreadsheet that says, here's where this complaint is, here's where this complaint is, that we follow that through. But it's simply the due process that we follow.
We do have, I mean, we were actually just talking about this for
We were.
actually a monthly update that is going to all the supervisors that actually highlights where we are on all ongoing issues. I mean, on the big development issues, the website actually has them too, but if you're talking about specific complaints, we've actually, Julie and I talked about this yesterday as well. There has been a document in the past, an internal document here, and we're reviving it again.
Keep you track, because unfortunately, your job is going to get more complex, more issues as time goes forward, and there's, I'll shut up.
No, we appreciate it. No, I mean,
Just also think, I mean, a decade ago, there was no staff here in the township at all, so.
4 years ago, there was.
4 years, so that's why there's a desire to have some staff here and to, because again, 3 of us are, say effectively volunteers, but
Essentially volunteers.
$2,500 a year.
Yeah.
But,
Can I ask for that? Is there a requirement for how many hours you guys are supposed to put in? And I'm sure you put in way more than that.
No.
It doesn't say, it's just.
No.
No, but
there's work that, so all 3 of us are allowed to work for the township. It falls
Right.
out of our purview of supervisor, and there's a rate of $26 an hour that one can get paid for that.
right, the supervisor stipend is not necessarily tied to anything by law.
How much of a drag is that on you?
How much of a drag?
When should we start paying you guys more?
You can-
That's why they got Julia, the township manager.
That's why we have staff.
Yeah, I mean, the thought isn't necessarily that we're supposed to. In some townships, you have a whole staff plus 3 supervisors that are there almost all the time. Little Smithfield does that.
And they're
Yes,
employees
you know,
as well as supervisors,
Right. So they have
full-time employees plus.
different, right, so they have different, effects. You could say that in some instances that's good, in some it's bad. It depends on the need, of an individual. I have a full-time job, as does Michael, and, for us, it's kind of limited the time that we're going to be able to put in for all the extra things. Most of what I would do on that added basis is related to the website or anything that's.
That doesn't give us a right to shirk our duties, of course.
Correct.
And we
We
tell
want you to
you,
be happy.
no.
Always happy in Smithfield. But no, seriously.
But it's worth saying that a lot of the jobs of the township also don't have to be employment. They can be outsourced. Like we outsource legal, we outsource engineering.
Right.
There are townships that outsource zoning enforcement. I don't know if there's townships that outsource as a contractor or manager or something like
That
that.
is only a new thing as of this year.
Allowed?
Yes. Firms can
Interesting.
do that.
Thank you.
Christine?
Does the zoning officer take some sort of oath or to, uphold the zoning laws of the township?
He's certified by the Pennsylvania Association of Zoning Officers. That's more or less an oath, and then otherwise any other oath would be, in the court of law on the time which he'd be sworn, or a hearing.
So then how does he, and I don't know if this question has been asked right, but how does he decide what to pursue and what not to pursue?
I asked him this today or yesterday. He said, obviously by law, he has required to get permits within certain timeframes. There's not
Right.
necessarily a formal timeframe for a complaint.
Right,
Correct.
So he does prioritize permits over complaints,
right.
because he's got a timeframe to do that.
Getting
But
them or,
when you submit a request for a permit, there's a
okay,
specific
okay, I
timeframe.
thought maybe as.
Not necessarily
using
giving
it,
them.
Like you're putting up
No,
this
no.
and you don't have a permit, okay.
Uh,
That would fall under
but-
the
Well, he does do that.
But my own understanding also is that there is no complaint that he hasn't necessarily. There was some light complaints. We've been talking about lighting complaints, but that he requires some training, and once that training is in place, he'll be able to go after those lighting complaints.
Correct.
I think that's just a quick question about that. Say for instance, somebody does something where they put a huge garage on their property, okay, without any permits, and they're not within the, they're not like 25 feet within the boundary line or 10 feet, whatever the covenants are for that area. What would the township do in a case like that? Would they make you take the garage down?
Maybe.
There are select instances in which that would happen. 1836 saloon, without permits constructed, their outdoor dining set, they eventually, got a conditional use and were able to do it, but if they did not secure that, they would have been required to tear it down, and if they wouldn't have done that, then we could have pursued doing it and assessing a lien or something for that matter.
So if someone did do something like that, where they did something and they put a structure in, and they didn't get the permit and they got the permit, so, and then they were told about it by the zoning officer, is all they have to do is just pay for that permit then, or is there fines?
Well, they have to get the permit. If the permit was not allowed,
Right,
there's a chance that you're not allowed to do what they wanted to do.
Right.
yeah, because my point would be, you know what I mean, because if that's the case, then anybody can simply say, well, heck with it, why should I get a permit? I'll just do what I wanna do, and then later on, if they catch me.
Beg forgiveness?
Permit, yeah, hardship, it's a hardship.
So some municipalities have experimented with opening like a month or two, sometimes even 3 months, Julia, where they allow compliance and people come in and, they cop to what they did and then they get a permit legally. Like that's happened, which has made things safer in some instances. But generally, unless you've been particularly belligerent, you're going to get the chance to comply. But if there's no chance of compliance, then it's gonna take that harder road.
Okay,
You rebuilt it.
yeah, so what else should come down then?
Correct, well, certainly will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
One more question,
one more,
and it's for Julia.
we're going.
Julia, the document management program that you were using, was that a commercial program or
The one that we're using now?
the one that you said broke?
No, but you're talking about the back end of the website.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a commercial program. What is that one? Ninja Forms? It didn't work on the back end. So the way that it was set up and successfully tested and operated for the first 3 years of the new website, because compare the current website with the previous one. It worked and then eventually it crashed. So it's not compatible essentially with the current WordPress system that we're using. So in an effort to be a little bit more efficient, in addition to not having it necessarily implemented there, we have, what is the name? I know it's Scantech is the name of the company, but what's the name of Trino? Trino is what currently does our digital document storage. And so there are ways that you can link your document storage with your newer.
Sorry, I was just laughing because, there's a camera talking about duck use. Yeah, carry on,
And
sorry.
so we're working on combining those two systems, so both are more efficient and effective. So right now, we have to essentially manually check the back end of those forms, but we don't actually have any of the current ones still online, just the PDFs of the paper form.
We've got the community garden plot somehow didn't break, so that one is still active,
Right.
but everything else has been taken down.
Unless there's anything pressing, can I make a motion to adjourn? So
Yes.
we can stop paying these guys over here?
Second.
And, Ron's solicitor report about the CRD, he said that he worked on that. What's going on with that?
That's proceeding at this point. The township is proceeding to approve documents that come in with respect to that plan.
From the 2005.
Yes,
And isn't that a landlocked project though? There's no road into the project?
that I can't tell you because I'm not that familiar with the project by way of whether it's landlocked or not.
I think the 2005, maybe the 2007 plan, had both an exit onto Hollow Road and onto Shawnee Valley Road.
That's what my second part of my question is. Hollow Road, there was no clear sight triangle, and that's why it never went through there. Then they're trying to get by Martha's there, and that is all wetlands, and they're gonna relocate the wetlands, but that's something else. Shawnee Valley Road, if that becomes a township road, is that gonna be the access to that development then?
Well, would be one of the access points. The other would be Hollow Road. All this was done in 2005, I think.
Okay, we're in 2024, things have changed. It's just
I know.
ludicrous that this is even being considered. And that's why I'm asking, what is Ron working on? That I'm afraid something's gonna happen and.
Well, he's been working on the
neighbors.
litigation that's ongoing for the declaratory
Declaratory
judgment.
judgment, right, what happened with that?
Well, that's
That's what he's
still
doing,
proceeding.
I
That's what-
assume.
Still in the lingering.
Correct, yeah, and you can follow that publicly as well, too. If you go to the Monroe County website on the pathonetaries page, C-Track is gonna be your best friend. That's where I follow it, just in case anything gets scanned or uploaded.
So
Yeah, just can I interject? So Martha.
what are we waiting for?
Well, it's the process.
The
So
ruling?
Martha Carbone, I'm a member of Shawnee Preservation Society, and as some of you know, thing went back all the way to 1985. There was the 2005 and then amended 2007. SPS, Shawnee Preservation Society, had a couple of lawsuits, but those were dropped. The developers and SPS sat down and negotiated a settlement, which was signed in, I think, 2018, if I remember, 2018, 2019, somewhere thereabouts. And so the 2005 plan was not part of the settlement. That's where we have a disagreement with the developers and the township. But they are proceeding with the 2005 plan at this point, because their position is they have the right to do that. Our position is it violates the settlement. So we are asking for a declaratory judgment at the Court of Common Pleas, and it's the filings back and forth at this point.
Well, that's what I was wondering, is Ron doing something for the township or for?
Yes.
He's filing documents that are being requested. I assume related
Yeah,
to
but
that.
developers on
But
the
isn't
2005 plan.
it landlocked though? There's no road into it.
At this point, no, they have to build roads.
Exactly.
Correct.
Just to be clear, we've never had the chance to vote on any of this because this was done in 2005 and the supervisors signed off on it and signed the
And every
developers
year you
agreement.
extend and extend and extend, which is somewhere they should have just said, listen, we're done extending.
There were reasons
Start
for that
over,
too.
brand new, fresh, and then take a look at it. Where are you gonna put the road? There's just,
I
I
understand
don't
your
know
concern,
what's
but
going on.
that's why we would like the court to tell us that, it is up to your interpretation right now, whether or not it clearly says that there is a plain, unchallenged right to proceed with that 2005 approval. You've asked the court to do that, which we originally asked to be asked of the court in, I think, February of 2022. So this is where we're at now. My hope is that we get something soon. The judge doesn't want oral arguments, if I understand what I've read correctly, that
Well,
everyone wants a
there's
motion on the
two
pleadings.
motions pending. There's a motion for judgment
On the pleadings.
filed by Shawnee and a motion for judgment filed by the township. So the town, I don't believe there's gonna be argument on the motion filed by Shawnee. I'm not sure what the status is on the motion filed by the township because we just received a scheduling order for the filing of briefs. In fact, I just got the brief from the Shawnee Preservation Society last week.
Alright, that's the current status where we're at.
Okay, so you're reading on the brief and you're.
You just got the brief
Correct, so now,
filing.
yes, So now we have to respond to that,
No, they're responding to
or
our
they're
brief.
responding to ours, so then, and
I
then
filed a
eventually
brief
we
saying
expect,
we should receive judgment, the case should be thrown out.
and then we expect the judge to,
And Shawnee has
Same
done
thing.
the same. Shawnee Preservation has sent back, so no, the case should not be thrown out, it should stay in, so we're gonna wait to see what the judge
and
says.
to be clear, you're following what your plain reading of the settlement is. It's not an expression of our personal view. It is obligating the township to what it was signed party to.
Township approved this plan in December of 2005, if I recall correctly. Go to those supervisors and knock on their doors. That's the best I can tell you. I have to do with what plan has been approved in front of me. Now, I understand what Martha is saying about the settlement, changing that. But there's some language in that settlement that really is not as clear as it should be, in my opinion. So let the judge say, that's what you're doing.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
Judge,
This is
you
not an
declare,
expression of
you
our-
tell us who's right and who's wrong. That's what a declaratory judgment is about.
Okay. That's what I wanted to make clear. All right, so Michael made a motion to adjourn and Robert seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned at 7:37.